job of the Attorney General, I think, is to warn people about consumer problems and consumer challenges, and really that's what I'm doing today. The Internet Cafe that you see behind you is just one example of hundreds that have sprung up across the state of Ohio. This is not a question of gambling, whether you like gambling or don't like gambling. People certainly have the right to gamble. But this is the gambling in Ohio that is today unregulated. So to me it is a consumer issue, and these places are frankly consumer ripoffs. When you go to a racetrack, the law says how much has to be paid back. When the new casinos are up, the law will say how much the slot machines have to pay back. These guys are running under the radar, quite frankly, and they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And unlike the local VFW that runs the bingo, or the American Legion that has other gambling that is totally regulated by the Attorney General's office, there is no regulation for these folks at all. We don't know who owns them. No background checks are done on the ownership. There is no guarantee what the payoff is. And certainly we can assume that no money is going to charity. So the remedy for this is in the legislature's hands today. We have worked with the state legislature on House Bill 195. That bill is pending in the state legislature. I fully expect the state legislature within the next few weeks to take action on that. And what that bill will do is give the Casino Commission in this state the authority to regulate places like this, so that the machines that are in there will have to be tested, that they will have to be certified that they are in fact complying with Ohio law. We think that this will go a long way, frankly, to protect the consumers in the state of Ohio. I'm more than happy to, I'm dying with this stuff, but I'm more than happy to respond to any questions.
Why should these places be legal at all? If they're illegal right now, why shouldn't they remain that way and just be banned?
Well, we believe they are illegal. The legislature certainly can ban them if they want to. We believe, we looked at it when I became Attorney General and felt that the best way to do this was frankly to regulate it. We think it is the safest as far as a legal challenge point of view, and we would be in a better position than actually an outright ban. But if the state legislature wants to outright ban them, then that is certainly up to the state legislature. But I got involved in this initially when right after I became Attorney General, I started getting calls from police departments around the state, and they said, look, we don't know how to deal with these. And we had some departments that had raids, and they had trials, and we had one court decision that went against the police and against law enforcement. We've had others that have gone the other way. So what we're trying to do is just make it clear. So when law enforcement goes into a place like this, there'll be a stamp on that machine if it's legal, and the Casino Commission will be able to regulate it.
We already know what the tax is on casino money. The casinos have to pay it. We already know what the tax will be on the slots at the racetracks. What is going to be tax rate on these people's profits?
Again, it's going to be up to the legislature. This bill is still a work in progress. The legislature can decide really how they want to handle it. I think effectively it's going to be difficult for many of these businesses to continue if this bill passes. The bill in its current form limits the number of machines per location, limits the number of locations, but that's clearly within the jurisdiction of the state legislature. One other thing that is kind of a side aspect of this, our veterans organizations, with the money they raise with bingo and other gambling that is regulated through the Attorney General's office, do a great deal of good, and the money goes to charity. These places, are not regulated at all. We assume there's no money going to charity. We don't know where the money is going. We don't know whose pocket it is in. And so it's a very, very different situation. It's kind of the Wild West that is occurring in the state of Ohio. We are talking We believe in tens of millions of dollars that are going into these locations. We could be as high as 100 million. Anyone really knows. We don't even know how many of these locations there are in this state. My guess is, from information that we have, there's at least 200, but there could be a lot more than that, and we just don't know where they are.
Have you had complaints from citizens? And if so, what sort of complaints have you heard?
Well, the complaints, we've had some complaints. First of all, we've had complaints from police. And they're the ones who obviously get the initial complaint from citizens. And so police usually react when they have a complaint from a citizen. And so our complaints that we have received in our office have been from the police departments and the prosecuting attorneys. We've also had discussions and complaints from people who run legitimate, legal operations, such as the VFW and the American Legion. These people are regulated, they are controlled, their money has to go to charity, and they have to file reports. These folks who run this, we don't know who they are, we don't know where the money's going, we don't know how much it is, and maybe the most important thing, when a consumer walks in the door, the consumer has no clue what the legal payout has to be because there's no regulation of it at all. So really, for me, it comes back to a consumer issue. And it's not a question of whether people gamble or don't gamble. People have a right to gamble. We have no problem with that. But simply a question of when they gamble, they ought to have some assurance of what percentage they're going to get back. They may not win, but they at least ought to know collectively, the people who are gambling, what they're going to get back. And any other legalized and regulated gambling in the state of Ohio, they know that. They can look in the law and find out what that is.
Is there any sense that this might be offshore?
Oh yeah, this money very well could be going offshore. It would shock me if some of it is not going offshore. This is a lot of money. I mean, this is real, serious money. And whenever there's serious money, there's always corruption. There's always crime. And I'm not talking about this place or any one particular place, but just in general, you're going to have problems with that much money going around, and it's totally unregulated.
Can you describe how these places operate? I mean, when you walked in, what happened?
Yeah, I was in one this morning. Pete and I were in one this morning. We can't go in here apparently because the door's locked and they have to let you in, which is always kind of interesting. But we walked in one this morning in Dayton. They were very hospitable. The lady behind the counter was very gracious and showed us. Pete actually plunked down $5, and he ended up winning $3, and so he lost $2. Is that the math? Did I do that math right?
That's right.
And that was all within about 4 minutes, 5 minutes of playing time. Basically what they do, and I think this is the thing maybe to understand, is why this is a loophole in the law. If you go into a Wendy's and they've got a sweepstakes, let's say you buy a Big Mac, and you scratch off something, and maybe you win something, or maybe you don't. But you don't throw away the Big Mac. You don't pitch the Big Mac and then you get the card. Well, really, that's what people do when they go into these places. The whole idea is that you're buying internet time or you're buying telephone time, which is what we did this morning. But no one uses that. That earns them points, which then enables them to go to what are really glorified, fancy slot machines. And they stick that in, and they play their points, and they see how they come out. And Pete didn't do too well today. Is this what we got this morning?
We got this morning.
Phone card, Lucky's Internet Cafe. Now this is the one on Dixie Drive in Dayton, so it's not relevant to this. But it's the same. It's the same principle. They all operate in the same principle. And really, what they've done is they have found a loophole in Ohio law. We believe technically these are illegal. But you got to go to court, and it's sometimes tough to make the case in court under current Ohio law. But they're coming in under this whole idea that it is a sweepstakes. And so it literally is the Wild West. I mean, if we're going to allow this, then we might as well just say, take all bets are off, literally, and just let anything go in the state and not regulate it. Let the money go in anybody's pocket if they want to, and not worry about charity getting anything.
So you're basically saying these are basically slot machines, illegal slot machines.
Yeah, most of them are slot machines. You don't know until you actually go in, and Pete can address this. Come on up here, Pete. Pete can address this and kind of tell you how we think most of these things and his investigators. Identify yourself. And
Pete Thomas, Chief of the Charitable Law Section for Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine. The only difference with a slot machine is you walk up and it's a random number generator. You don't know when you play if you've won or not until you push the button.
And no one knows.
No one knows. In this place, the outcome is predetermined, so they say. When you enter, there's a certain number of winners, a certain number of losers. There should be odds on winning and losing. But when we were there this morning, I don't know what jackpot I was playing for. There was nothing that said I could win $500 or $1,000. I don't know what the odds are. When you go to Wendy's, it says odds are 1 in a million, you'll win $1 million. But there's nothing like that here. So,
and when you go up to the machine, correct me if I'm wrong about how these machines work. I'm certainly not the tech guy here. But when you go up to these machines, in most of the cases, it's predetermined when you stick that in. I mean, you have already won or lost when you get that card. In many of the cases,
that is what they say, and that is what would need to be verified by a laboratory if we were going to prosecute.
And so, you know, or it may be they're actually the slot machine that is the random generator. So,
a few months ago, there was the phrase. The big debate was: are these machines skill-based or just glorified?
Take that one.
Now nobody's even talking about the skill-based thing anymore. Why not? Have these guys changed their whole thing?
Yes, they've changed the business model. The skill-based, to have gambling, you have to have consideration or money to play a chance to win a prize. On skill game, they say there's no chance. It's a game of skill, so therefore it's not illegal gambling. Here, they're saying there's no consideration. You're not buying a chance to gamble, you're buying a phone card.
That's right.
So that's the loophole in the law.
Attorney General, you've spoken out about this before. You've held press conferences, you've testified on the bill. What brings you out here today?
I think we're now to the point, where the legislature, I think, is ready to move, and we hope they will move. And so it is really to highlight this as a very important issue that has some real impact for Ohio consumers. And so that's why I'm doing it. And I want to kind of the final push to get this done and get it, frankly, through the legislature and be done with it, so we can move on.
Are you sensing any resistance in the legislature?
I don't know that there's necessarily resistance. The legislature has been pretty busy. I mean, they had the budget to deal with. They've had redistricting. They've had other things. But we think the time now is right for the legislature to really take a hard look at this. We've been in contact with the governor's office. We've worked closely with the governor's office on this as recently as, I guess, yesterday, and as well as the leaders in the state legislature. We think the time is ripe, but this is frankly an opportunity for me to describe how big this is. And this is growing in Ohio. And make no mistake about it. This continues to grow. We even saw one letter that came through some time ago, I think, that basically said, hey, we got to get the money while we can get it. And so every day that goes on, Ohio consumers are losing money. And again, if they want to gamble, that's fine. But people ought to at least know what their odds are. They ought to have a fair shake when they're gambling.
I think the most recent version of the House bill took away the limits on how many there are. I think they're trying to put it more in line with the skill-based businesses.
Well, look, I'm for whatever the legislature wants to do. I mean, our job is to try to advise them about what we think will work, what we think will not work. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the state legislature what they do in regard to this.
I guess I still don't quite understand the tax thing. The casinos have been authorized. They're going to pay a 33% tax on all on their gambling revenue. This bill that you're pushing doesn't have some kind of super high tax like that?
Again, and Pete, you can jump in here on this as well. But this is entirely up to the state legislature. We believe that the bill, as we originally drafted it, would candidly put most of these places out of business because the economic model simply would not work. So it becomes almost an irrelevant issue. Now, depending on how the state legislature drafts this, they certainly can put into it a provision that if any of these folks who do qualify, they can run an honest operation, that a certain percentage would be in taxes, and we have no problem with that at all. Again, that's the legislative business.
Are you seeing this in other states? I mean, is Ohio suddenly being converged on by these groups, or is this?
No, I
happening
think it's
all
going.
over?
It certainly is in other states. So Pete, again, what are you guys picking up?
Florida has got a huge issue. Texas, North Carolina, it's all over.
What are those states doing?
North Carolina has enacted a ban that's been challenged on appeal. It's one court there, I think, upheld it, another overturned it. Kansas tried a ban, their statute was overturned. Florida has not done anything yet, and neither has Texas.
Okay, anybody else?